All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody, or morning or evening, whenever it might be. Today, we're going to focus on the first and what I think is the most fundamental data quality dimension is timeliness, currency, data decay. It's really boils down to where's my data. If I need to know that the data that I'm using is current, at least for how I define it, and I cannot do the job I'm being asked to do if one, the tables are not updated, or even if they are updated, if some of the data that's critical is missing. This may be customer data that you expect to get daily or weekly. Maybe it's an eligibility feed if you work in like a healthcare or hospital type setting, or sales data. It could be any number of items. Store data that's supposed to come in. You work for corporate, blah, blah, blah. Uh, and we need to understand, did store 12's data come in on time? And if I'm supposed to be producing reports that include that and I don't have data there today, I need to know about it. And so I'm going to show you a couple of tricks that you can implement in order to make sure that you have that data in its current. So get out of this real quick, close that down. So what I have done is essentially, wow, that does not look great on the recording. I have to look at that. Anyway, what I've done is I've created a BigQuery account just in the sandbox, and maybe we'll enable billing if we need to later, but at least for the moment, we'll just stick with this. I can get rid of this now so I remember. And essentially what I did is go out to Google. I created a quick project, created a quick project here, DQ Timeliness 1. I imported in the BigQuery public data. And from there, I started trolling around trying to find something that looked like it might be valuable. I, so what I did is I found some NOAA weather information here. And if I click on this here, we'll see that this is preliminary severe storms weather created back in 2019, last modified in 2022. That's not ideal. I originally grabbed onto this because it talked about it being daily data, and I thought maybe it was actually being updated daily, which would be ideal for what we want to look at, but um, it's not. And we'll show you, we'll make do with that and show, how this would work in a real live data set at your place. So this has three tables in it. It's got hail reports, tornado reports, and wind reports. I mean, obviously, I think it's great. Take a look at the data to start with. We can see some of the fields here. That usually doesn't do much for me. I usually want to know, how many rows are in it. This is a relatively small table. Um, when's the last time it was modified? And then you can obviously preview the data here. We've got a timestamp. We've got size, location, country, state. I already see there's some bogus information in that first record there. Latitude and longitude. The data, the contents of this isn't really all that important. It's really about, we've got three tables, we've got a schema, and we've got a project. And so from there, we can start to do some work on when the last time this table was updated. So we're going to start here. I've got this kind of pre-built, and I'll post it out onto GitHub so that you'll be able to see this information. But we'll go to this data decay table, and I'm going to start by a quick query here. This is really select star from the name of the public data set, and then we've got NOAA preliminary severe storms is really the schema. And then this underscore underscore tables underscore underscore is a powerful little system table that BigQuery makes available to us. Every database essentially has these system tables in one form or another. Now, whether you as the user have access to them, that's sometimes another story, but typically if you have read capabilities on these tables, you're typically going to get access to read on the system tables by default. And this is where you beg for forgiveness, don't ask for permission first. Make sure to see if you can figure out what tables they are, sleuthing that out yourself, and then go ahead and start banging against these because they can be really powerful. We can see uh, the, the schema here. We can see the three tables. We can see the creation time, and we can see the last modified time. It's in kind of a timestamp millisecond format, but we can deal with that. We can see how many rows there are and how many bytes, and then this type here, it just so happens that type 1 in BigQuery is a table. I believe type 2 is a view. Those have pretty jinky uh, times associated with them or dates associated when they were last updated, so I usually just eliminate those. And just to give you an idea here on, I gotta find which doggone table it is. I'll move this to a new window. So if you come up to here, so you say, hey Rod, I'm not on BigQuery. How does this work for me? If you were sitting on a legacy system, maybe you're over on Oracle. I typed in Oracle system tables for table and columns. Come right over to here. First click of the returns, and I can swing down here and see information about columns, information about tables, views. So this is great. This probably doesn't have everything I want. Column statistics. I was here just a little bit ago, and of course, stores data about column statistics. Let's see what we've got here. No, that's not what we want. Come back to here. Of course, I had it just a little bit ago, and then so we can scroll down here. This is what I would typically do to start with and try to find out, do I have any date times here? I think the answer to this whole thing was no. And then I think, though, here we go. Table stats. Table stats store statistics for the tables in the database, rows in the table. Also has a last update date, the time of the most recent update for this table. There, bingo, right there. That's probably a good place to hang your hat or at least get started. So the point of that was not to watch me fumble around and not be able to recreate what I just did 5 minutes ago in prep to try to make these a little less sucky. But at any rate, what the point is that you can typically find this for whether you're on SQL Server, whether you're on Azure or BigQuery or Oracle, or, whatever it is. So Postgres, they all have these system tables that you can leverage. So we'll close that down. So what we've got here is just taking this select star just one step further and saying, what if I do some calculations on this? I want to know how old these tables are. How long has it been since they've been updated? So I've got to select, project, data set, table, and then I'm doing a little bit of conversion work from the timestamp millisecond, just converting it into a date, doing the row count, rounding off the size because I want to see it in gigs. I don't like looking at things in bytes. And then I bring down the type, and then I'm going to add a field here called data decay days, and it's basically just a calculation to show me the difference between today's date and the date if I convert it over to an actual date, and then tell me the number of days between those. So run this real quick. What it's going to bring back is something similar to the select star. It just has this a little bit more information. So it tells us this last modified date and a date that we can actually, read and send and put in a deck, put in an email, and people understand it. And you can see here, 95 days, 204 days. Ideally in your real life situation, this would be, a day or 0 days, 1 day, 2 day, anything above that on a daily table, and you think you've got a problem. You need to raise some red flags. So that's a way to look at is my data current from the table perspective. And what you'll see here is you see last modified 11/22. The interesting thing is, though, and you should always take these a step farther. Make sure you know your data. You don't need to know the contents of the data per se, but you do need to know the data and understand how the data is organized and some pieces and parts of it. So, for me, if I come back to this hailstorm reports, I'm going to take a look at this and see that I've got my timestamp here, some other information, probably the size of the hail, and then I have a state, even though obviously we have some stuff. So to me, here's an example of saying, I'm supposed to get data every day or every week from this entity here, which in this instance is state, and they've given me a timestamp, probably when this data was reported, not necessarily when it was loaded to the table. So typically you're going to have a date associated with this event, and then you're also probably at the end of your table, you're going to have a last update date, maybe a last update user ID. Those are other dates that you can grab onto when you're looking at is the data current. So just working with what we have here at the moment. Hope maybe I'll find a better data set here as I troll around, but this was just the first one I came to. If we go ahead and select the state, I'm going to select max timestamp, and then we're just going to group by state, and then we'll order it by the newest data first. So let's fire this one up here and see what we've got. So here we can see Kentucky, we can see 2022-1-1. That's the most recent information that we have out here. And then we go back into 2021. So right away, the point of this is you're seeing the data within is 1-1 of 2022. And if we come back to hail reports and we look at the details, it's telling us it was updated in last modified the 22nd of November 2022. So you got a little bit of discrepancy here. You got to take it with a grain of salt, being that this is, whatever self-reported data or however this data is coming in, and obviously it's just a public data set. But when you think about the data that you're responsible for, you're working with, when the table was last updated and then how current the data is within that table, those things matter. And it matters, based on what you're doing with that data. If you're trying to produce reports, you're trying to have up-to-date information on customers or stores or, whatever the function is that you work within in your job. So we take this just a little bit now. Normally, basically moving this down a little bit more and saying, I only want to look at data that's a certain age old, and I can say select star. I guess this is the interesting part is that I'm essentially saying select star from, and then I'm putting another select statement in there. I don't really love doing stuff this way. I more prefer to use CTEs, and we'll do quite a few of those in upcoming videos. These sort of sub-selects I'm not a huge fan of them. My brain doesn't like them, but it works pretty easy for this sort of thing, and it's also the only way you can do the next one effectively. If you're a regular human being, if you're an SQL wizard, then why are you watching this? Anyway, we're going to do the same thing. Select the state, max timestamp, and group by state. We did that above. And then we're going to look at, show me the data that's older than a certain interval. So we got the current date and the interval. I had to move this to 500 days since this data is so old, but you could imagine, if you're looking at production data, then you maybe only want to look at stuff that's older, than 5 days. You only, if it's been a day and a half since it's been loaded, you don't care, but you certainly care if you hit that 3-day mark, something like that. And that's when you want to fire up your, hey, something looks to be wrong. We can see we have 48 records here in this first one. So if we run this little SQL statement, I think we had like 31 records here. So you can see by tweaking this, I was able to show that, there's some stuff that, fell away that we don't necessarily care about from a data quality standpoint, and we don't have to worry about those states, but we do need to worry about Arizona because Arizona hasn't sent data in since 10/6 of 2021. And if they are expecting that data to be current, there's a massive problem here, but this is just fun data. So now we did this for one table, and what if we have 3 tables, and one of the things we'll talk about a little bit in a later video is how to work on automating this and setting up alerts. But for now, we're just kind of doing the old Emmanuel runs this process. But we can actually extend this, and this is where that sub-select comes into play. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of these, but it does work nicely here. And normally I would use a common table expression, or CTE, as you hear them we're a slightly different format. It just works with my brain better. But here we can basically say select star from, and then what we're selecting is from are these three queries that we're going to union together, basically. So we're doing the exact same information, and I've added, hail reports, tornado reports, and wind reports as basically a constant to the beginning of all of these, and then your state and your timestamp again. And then here again, this sort of where exclusion clause is the same, and we'll just order it by timestamp. You could order it by pretty much anything if you wanted. But if we fire this guy up and run it, it'll bring us back a result set. And here, here you can see more data quality. We saw the N, and now we see the XX. But now you can, take a look at all of the three tables that you have, and when's the last information by state. You could, of course, remove state and just tell me, like, when's the last date timestamp for this particular table. And then you could compare that to the query we did above as to when the table was last updated. So really what you've seen here in this short video is you've seen how to look at the system tables and whether or not that data is current from a system perspective or when the last time it's been updated. Then you can kind of see like how you can dig into the data a little bit more, and you could easily substitute this state for, customer name or store number, dealership, whatever supplier, whatever those things are that are important to your company or your domain that you're working within, and give yourself that ability to sort of track this information. So won't go a ton farther than that. I will show you one other system table though that I like in BigQuery. I use this one a lot because I get tired of flipping back and forth and trying to see what was that field again, because the autocomplete doesn't always work as well as you would love it to, especially when you're cutting and pasting and copying and hacking around. But here, from this information schema, column field paths, you can see the actual table, the column name, and the data type. And we're going to use this here in a couple of videos from now when we talk about how to profile data. And I mentioned it before, we'll use an SQL to essentially, that its job is to write another SQL and submit it on our behalf. And this works really well using this particular table. And since it gives us basically the table name, column name, and data type, we know how to appropriately profile the data, and we can write a query to do that for us. So hopefully this was helpful. I think here again, we're just talking about the most fundamental data quality dimension in my mind, which is where's my data, and is my data current? And nothing is more irritating, embarrassing, to have some downstream customer tell you that, hey, it doesn't look like we've gotten wind report data for a week and a half. Could you look into that? It's just something that we should be able to, as whether you're in an IS department or whether you're in an analytics department, that we should really have a handle on. So I'll leave it there. Hopefully this helps, and next time we will grab onto another data quality dimension and work through a few examples on that. So have a great day.